building and deploying a scalable Redis clone on AWS EKS with comprehensive DevSecOps and monitoring. This podcast is brought to you by Business Compass LLC. We are an Amazon Web Services advanced consulting partner. We build and migrate workloads to Amazon Cloud. Our website is businesscompassllc.com. Our phone number is 973-638-2228. Our email address is contact@businesscompassllc.us. Introduction, project overview, and goals for cloud-native Redis clone. Building a scalable, secure, and robust application like Redis requires leveraging advanced tools and technologies in the era of cloud-native applications. This podcast will guide you through building and deploying a Redis clone on AWS EKS with a strong focus on DevSecOps and monitoring. Our goal is to create a resilient application environment that emphasizes continuous integration, continuous delivery, and security from the ground up. Project tools and technologies, leveraging Terraform, AWS, EKS, and more. To achieve our goals, we will use the following tools and technologies. AWS, for cloud infrastructure. EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, to manage Kubernetes clusters. Terraform, for infrastructure as code, IAC, to automate the setup. Jenkins, for continuous integration and continuous delivery, C/CD. SonarQube and a WASP dependency check. This is for static code analysis and security scanning. Trivy, for container vulnerability scanning. Docker, this is for containerizing the Redis clone application. Argo CD, for GitOps-based continuous delivery. Prometheus and Grafana, for monitoring. EFK Stack, Elasticsearch, Fluent, Kibana, for centralized logging. Setting up the AWS environment, IAM user, CLI configuration, and EC2 instance. IAM user creation. Create an IAM user with the necessary permissions to manage EKS and other resources. AWS CLI configuration. Install and configure the AWS CLI on your local machine. EC2 instance setup. Launch an EC2 instance as the Jenkins server. Ensure it has sufficient resources and appropriate security group settings. Provisioning Jenkins, SonarQube, and Trivy with Terraform, automating infrastructure setup. Use Terraform to automate the provisioning of Jenkins, SonarQube, and Trivy. Terraform installation. Install Terraform on your local machine. Terraform scripts. Write scripts to provision Jenkins, SonarQube, and Trivy on EC2 instances or Kubernetes. Execution. Execute the Terraform scripts to set up the infrastructure. Installing and configuring Jenkins plugins, enabling essential C/CD tools. Once Jenkins is up and running. Plugin installation. Install essential Jenkins plugins like Git, Docker, Kubernetes, and Pipeline. Configuration. Configure the plugins to integrate with your code repository, Docker registry, and Kubernetes cluster. Integrating SonarQube and a WASP for code quality and security, static code analysis and vulnerability scanning. SonarQube setup. Install and configure SonarQube for static code analysis. A WASP dependency check. Integrate a WASP dependency check with Jenkins for dependency vulnerability scanning. Pipeline configuration. Update Jenkins pipelines to include SonarQube analysis and a WASP scanning stages. Building and pushing the Docker image, containerizing the Redis clone app. Docker file creation. Write a Docker file to containerize the Redis clone application. Build process. Use Jenkins to build the Docker image. Docker registry. Push the Docker image to a Docker registry, for example, Amazon ECR. Creating the EKS cluster and setting up Argo CD, automating deployment to Kubernetes. EKS cluster creation. Use Terraform or the AWS CLI to create an EKS cluster. Argo CD setup. Install and configure Argo CD for continuous deployment. Application deployment. Deploy the Redis clone application to the EKS cluster using Argo CD. Implementing Kubernetes monitoring with Prometheus and Grafana, visualizing cluster metrics and health. Prometheus installation. Install Prometheus on the EKS cluster to collect metrics. Grafana setup. Install Grafana and configure it to visualize metrics collected by Prometheus. Dashboards. Create custom dashboards in Grafana to monitor the health and performance of the Redis clone application. Centralized logging with the EFK stack, Elasticsearch, Fluent, Kibana, collecting and analyzing logs for troubleshooting. EFK stack deployment. Deploy Elasticsearch, Fluent, and Kibana on the EKS cluster. Log collection. Configure Fluent to collect logs from Kubernetes pods and send them to Elasticsearch. Visualization. Use Kibana to visualize and analyze logs for troubleshooting and monitoring purposes. Conclusion. Project summary and future enhancements for the Reddit clone. In this podcast, we demonstrated how to build and deploy a Reddit clone on AWS EKS with a robust DevSecOps approach and comprehensive monitoring. The key takeaways include leveraging Terraform for infrastructure automation, Jenkins for C/CD, SonarQube, and OWASP for code quality and security, Argo CD for deployment, and Prometheus, Grafana, and the EKS stack for monitoring and logging. Future enhancements can include adding more security layers, optimizing the C/CD pipeline, and scaling the application. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please share this podcast, visit our website, and follow our social media links.